Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Welcome to English Grade 7 video lessons. I'm your English teacher Zia. I hope that you're doing well. Students, now let's do another SLO from our unit number 5. This is from the competency of grammar and we are going to talk about degrees of adjectives. Let's read our students' learning outcome. It says change and use degrees of adjectives, positive, comparative, superlative of varying syllables and irregular degree. Now, we know, students, that adjective is a part of speech and it has different forms. We are going to talk about each form. They are positive, comparative, and superlative. Not only this, but adjectives are regular and irregular. We are going to see that how regular and irregular degree adjectives have different kinds of degrees. Let's move on. Here you can see a vertical linkage that links this SLO with the previous grade. And then let's talk about today's brainstorming session before we begin the lesson so that you can dive into the lesson mentally and prepare it so that we can learn better. So for your brainstorming session today, you have to answer this prompt. You can pause the video, think about it, and come up with answers. Let's see what do we have here today. Can adjectives change to show more or less of something? We know that adjectives are words that give more information and some description and detail to our nouns and pronouns. These words modify our nouns and pronouns. But when we are doing some degrees, when there's comparison or when there's superlative form, they change, right? So let's move on. Let's revise and recall our definition of adjective. I hope that you can retain from your memory that an adjective is a word that modifies or describes a noun or pronoun. Adjectives can be used to describe the qualities of someone or something, independently or in comparison to something else. So it means that we can use adjectives when we are comparing different things according to the qualities. Let's move on. Let's see that there are two major categories of adjectives, regular and irregular. First, let's learn their definition and see how they are different. So, for first thing first, the regular adjectives follow the pattern of adding er or more in the comparative form and est or most in the superlative form. So for the comparative form, when we are comparing two adjectives, we use er or more, and when we are comparing with the rest of other things, it becomes a superlative form and we use est or most with our adjectives. Now, this is all about the regular adjectives. Now, coming to irregular adjectives, they do not follow this pattern. That's why they are called irregular. And instead, the regular adjectives becomes a new word in its comparative and superlative form, such as the adjective good over here. Now, good is describing a quality of our noun or pronoun. When we are doing it in comparison, the word does not become gooder, it becomes better. It's a completely different word. Hence, this adjective is irregular. And when we are using the superlative degree of the word good, it becomes a totally different word. We call it best. So you can see that with regular adjectives, we can add er or more and est or most. But when we have irregular adjectives, words that do not work in this way, they have a different pattern. Students, that's when we use different words, and they are called our irregular adjectives. Let's see them one by one, and we can solve different activities. So you should pay attention and solve those upcoming exercises and activities with me. Let's talk about regular adjectives. Now, when we are showing an unequal comparison, when there is no equal comparison, we are using an adjective with one syllable. You must add er to the ending. For example, now this is the formula or the whole pattern. You will add your adjective plus er with the adjective word, and then you add then. T-H-A-N then. Let's look at some examples. The weather today is warmer than yesterday, perfect for a picnic. Warm is our adjective, but when we are comparing today's weather with yesterday's weather, we add er with it, and also then. So, the next example, it says, this book is longer than the one I read last week. Again, long is your adjective. You add er with it and then add then. So, since we are comparing today this book that is currently being read with the one that was read last week. Now, see, when we are doing this kind of comparison, students, we add er with the adjective followed by then. And this way we can say that this regular adjective can be transformed into its comparative degree or comparative form. Now, let's talk about another example. So, when we are showing an unequal comparison using an adjective with more than one syllable, in the previous one we talked about one syllable. Here, if the word is divided into different syllables, that's when we will be adding IER with the adjective followed by then. For example, today is going to be busier than yesterday. So students, can you see that? We remove the Y and add IER with busy followed by our word then. So, we are comparing today with yesterday. And we know that busy word has more than one syllable. In this way, we can remove the Y, add IER plus then. And we can make a comparative form or comparative degree of the word. Now, let's talk about another situation. So when you have to show an unequal comparison using an adjective with more than one syllable that does not end in Y, the ending of the adjective remains unchanged and you must use more or less before the adjective. Now, in the previous rule, we had a word ending in Y. But when we don't have a word ending in Y and it has more than one syllable, we will be adding more or less and they will come before your adjectives. So the word more or less plus your adjective word and then you add THAN then. It's really simple. Let's look at and understand it with some examples. Number one, this room is more spacious than the one we had before. Now, the word spacious does not have Y at the end, so we add more before it with our adjective and then we add THAN then. We are comparing one room to the one we had before. Now, this material is less expensive than that one. This material is being compared with that material. So we are comparing it and we will be using less or more, depends on the situation, the context. Then you add your adjective plus then. So when we have words with more than one syllables, but they are not ending in y, we will not touch the adjective. We'll just add more or less before, then the adjective, and then we add tha and then. This way we can make a very correct comparative form of that adjective. Now, when we want to show an unequal comparison, we need to use an adjective followed by a preposition such as of, in, on, etc. It may also be followed by the noun in which it is greater or lesser. It may also be followed by nothing else when the context is hidden or implicit. So, for superlative adjectives with one syllable, we add est to the ending. So, we have our adjective plus est and then our preposition. For example, I visited the tallest building in the city. We have an adjective tall. We added est and then we added our preposition in the. So in this way you can make an comparison with prepositions. Next example is, I read the funniest book of all time. Now we remove y and add iest and then our preposition of. So you can see that your adjective plus the est or ist depends on the adjective, and then you add then. And then you add your prepositions. It can be of, on, in, and all those prepositions. So this is how you make a comparative degree with a superlative degree with adjectives ending in this way. Now, let's talk about superlative degree. So for superlative adjectives with two syllables, when we have more than one syllable, when the word can be broken down into two parts or more than two, and if it is ending in y, we remove the y, omit the y, and add iest to the end. So the formula would be that you need to remember adjective plus iest and then preposition. For example, if the adjective is happy, now the adjective is ending in y. Happy is ending in y. We remove the y and add iest and it becomes happiest. So therefore, happiest is the superlative form of happy. Busy will become busiest and silly becomes silliest. So when you are having adjectives with more than one syllable and it ends with y, and if you have any preposition in front of it, you remove the y, add iest and any of your coming up preposition. Now, let's look at another situation. Now, these rules, dear students, are very important if you want to make comparative or superlative degrees of adjectives with one syllable that ends in y, two that end in y, or all those situations that we are learning. For adjectives with more than one syllable that do not end in y, the spelling of the adjective remains unchanged. We do not change that spelling. We will be using most or least before that adjective. And most or least will come first, then your adjective, and then the preposition. Let's look at and learn it from an example. this is the most interesting place in the city to visit. Now, interesting is our adjective. You cannot change it. It is not ending in Y. We will add most or least before it, then our adjective, and then our preposition. Same way, he was the least surprised person at the party. Least comes first, then your adjective, and then whenever your preposition comes over here. So this way you can make a correct kind of comparison or superlative degree. Now, till now we were talking about regular adjectives, adjectives that can be converted into their different forms and degrees with adding more, most, er or est or ist. Now, this is following a pattern. We call it regular adjectives. Now, when we are talking about irregular adjectives, they are different. They have different rules. Now, irregular adjectives, unlike the regular adjectives, they are adjectives that do not change form or degree by adding er or est or more or most. So, for example, let's take the adjective good. Good is an example of an irregular adjective because its comparative form or degree will be better, and its superlative form, or you can also call it degree, is best. So you can see that good, better, and best, these are three different words. They do not look similar. We did not put er or est, more or most in them. So all these adjectives that work in this way, that come up with different words in comparatives and superlative form, we call them irregular adjectives. Now, here is a list of some irregular adjectives along with their comparative and superlative degrees or forms. So first we have the neutral, the positive word good. Its comparative is better and its superlative degree is best. Well becomes better and best. Bad becomes worst and worse and worst. Ill becomes worse and worse. So they are kind of the similar. Much, more, and most. Many, more, and most. And you can read the rest of them by yourself. You can see that the words are changing, right? Now, let's do this classroom activity today. You can do it with your instructor, your fellows, and submit the results later on. Now, first, let's choose the most appropriate comparative adjective. The soup is, then the milk. Now, we are comparing. So it means either we are going to choose words with er or more. Most hot is incorrect. Hot is incorrect. Hottest is superlative degree. This is also not the option. So we ended up with the option hotter. The soup is hotter than the milk. The rock is harder than the banana. My little brother is sillier than I am. This picture is prettier. Because we are comparing, we remove the y. We removed the y from pretty and added I-E-R. So we made the word prettier. So you can solve the rest of the MCQs by yourself. You can see that when we are having word ending, an adjective ending with y, we remove it, we change it a little bit to make it into the comparative degree. And when we have superlative degree, let's see what we are supposed to do. Now these are superlative adjectives. We are going to use the superlative form or superlative degree. Mount Everest is the highest mountain peak in the world. Not this one, not this one, and not this one. Because when we learned about making superlative degrees, we learned that we add est after the adjective. Again, there are some more MCQs that you can solve. These are your irregular adjectives. Now, which one of the following irregular adjectives is in the superlative form? Now, this one is the right answer because the superlative form of bad is worst. You can do this by yourself and watch this simulation video, and it contains different MCQs that you can solve along with the narrator of the video. Your worksheet is attached, and for your homework you need to make 10 sentences of each regular and irregular adjectives. So here are all the resources at the end. Your worksheet, lesson plan and presentation, they are added. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that we have covered our students' learning outcome. We learned about regular adjectives and irregular adjectives. We also learned about their different degrees and rules in order to make comparative and superlative degrees. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video lesson. Allah Hafiz.